am Eggy Drago. I am the cream of the crop. I am the yolk on top. I'm a part-time video store clerk, a part-time brawler. Oh yeah, and a full-time human being. Wow. When I went to Tokyo back in February 2024, I went to an idol concert on a whim because my VTuber Oshi, who graduated, was into that scene. Needless to say, I got hooked. Yeah, I think we bought too many Checkies. After talking to a few idols, I realized every single one of them has a story, be it why they chased this dream, their ups and downs, and even their future after all this. And that's what I'm here to do. Learn more about the idol culture, the various scenes around the world, and to give them a platform to tell their stories. Every idol has a dream and a story to tell. This is IDOLEYEZ. Mike muted, oh my god. Hello, hi, ni hao, annyeong. We are here because this is IDOLEYEZ. I am the cream of the crop. I am the yolk on top. This is mighty Eggy Drago for episode 19 of IDOLEYEZ with our guest for tonight. He is a director, he is a producer, he is a writer, he is a lyricist, he is a manager, he is a man of 1,004 jobs. He is, I would say, the mastermind of Isiliel. This is Ricky Wilson. Ricky, how are you?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you for well, this interview, it was a long time coming. I was very nervous to propose this idea at Natsumatsuri at Bupan, but here we are. 3 months later. So yeah.
It's really hard to believe it's been 3 months since we were in New Jersey. Wow.
Crazy. But yeah. But first, before we start this interview, we have a sponsor ad read, as this episode of IDOLEYEZ is sponsored by Yeah Lights. Lights? Yeah Lights. How can we light up your life? At Yeah Lights, we can make your moment shine brighter. Whether you're heading to a concert, a party, or any exciting event, we've got you covered. With concert pen lights, light sticks, UOs, colored glow sticks, and accessories that take your experience to the next level. Looking for something special? We also offer customized products in bulk, perfect for connecting fans with idols and making your event unforgettable. Check us out at yeahlights.com and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at yeahlights. And here we go with this interview. Ricky, are you ready?
I am ready to go.
So we're gonna take you back to, I would say, your idol origin story, and I'm gonna ask you, how did you get involved with idol culture?
So this is going back a ways. This is probably 15 years ago or so. But I was actually working for an online hobby shop that many of your listeners have probably ordered things from. It's the biggest one in Japan. So if you are an anime or game fan and you order things from Japan, chances are you've bought things from there. But their parent company was contracted to do an event in Malaysia that was going to be basically a kind of TV production event, but also at this big government summer festival, like a youth festival in Kuala Lumpur. And so the promoter wanted to bring over some idols, and he wanted to bring over AKB. Also, yeah. So big ask, very big ask.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a lot of your listeners probably know, 15 years ago, we're talking like Kami 7 era, right? So, I mean, AKB was basically like, you couldn't get any bigger than AKB. And so the kind of person in our company in charge of the overall management of the event, we went to AKB, they said, hey, you know, we want to do this. And they were like, yeah, if you have all the money, we might consider it. And they were like, we've got some of the money. And so they passed. So it was kind of given to us to say, like, what are some other idols that you could bring over? Who's cool? Who's interesting? And so that was sort of my intro. It was basically a job assignment saying, find out about idols. Right. Find out what's going on. But yeah, in the end, we took Momoiro Clover Z and Shoko Nakagawa, who's a sort of idol slash
What?
voice actress. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy,
um,
Shoko.
yeah.
Wow.
It was insane, and I was a pretty big Shokotan fan as well. So that was all. It was really really cool. But through that, I got a lot of information about the other idols and kind of the other groups that were kind of coming out and active at that time. And that was sort of my entrance into the idol realm.
Right. Uh, I guess when you were like studying or like learning about idols, do you remember like the first idol show that you went to, or yeah?
Yeah, I remember it very well, actually. So it was at Shinjuku Loft, which is not like an idol venue. It's more of a band venue, right, in
Right.
Shinjuku. But they also have a lot of idol shows there, and it was a two-man show between Denpagumi Inc. and Mariko Goto, who was previously with Midori. So Mariko Goto probably not necessarily an idol, but Denpagumi definitely an idol. And
Right.
this was right after Moga and Pinky had entered the group, maybe 3 or 4 months after they had joined, I think. So it was actually right before Dempagumi blew up. They got really big. So that was crazy. Just because I had my only experience or kind of like understanding of idols previous to that was really the very kind of mainstream idols that living in Japan you're exposed to. Again, AKB, Hello Project, and so I didn't know that there was this sort of like fomenting subculture of, in a good way, weird idols. Like
Weird, yeah.
kind of strange idols that were sort of coming to the forefront at that point. But yeah, it was an eye opener, definitely.
Was there at that show, was there like any culture shock that you like experienced? Like was there like anything really different compared to maybe a concert like back home or something like that?
I've been going to concerts. So I've been in Japan for about 21 years, 21 years now.
Mhm.
And when I first came over, I was going to a lot of shows. I played in a couple bands, like not like real bands, just sort of like, 20-year-old guys making noise on stage bands. But I went to a lot of punk shows. I went to a lot of punk shows when I came to Tokyo initially. It was right in the middle of that like crossover thrash power violence time frame. So a lot of really underground shows, really gritty, grimy punk venue underground shows. And so it was weird because I had been to Loft before, so for actual like band shows, and to see an idol show there, it was it was sort of like a bit of a culture shock in that you've got the choreography, you've got the costumes, you've got the fan interactions, you've got all of this kind of production, but it still had that underground feel. It still had that like independent underground atmosphere. It wasn't like an arena show or something like that, because previously I thought that idol shows were all these like you go to Saitama Super Arena and there's 10,000 people there, and you can see the performers like an ant on the stage or on the monitors in the background, but it's up close, it's up close and personal. And mixing and calls and kind of otage, all of that. It was totally my first time seeing any of that. So yeah, it was really like, wow, this is a whole new world.
Cuz like for me, that like the exposure of like I guess the intimate setting, going to like a Taiwan or like a Chica idol event and like being super close and like it's a small venue, so like it's very you're pretty much face to face with the idol, and like all the wodas, the mixes, all that stuff pretty much caught my eye. And that's why Idolize is a thing now. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's really cool. It's really really cool, and I think that um to have that kind of experimentation, like to take that concept of an idol show and add that really experimental music, a bit avant-garde, is really, it's something very, very special. Something very special. So yeah, I was kind of caught hook, line, and sinker. I thought this is really awesome.
I see. At what point did you realize that you really wanted to like start your own idol group?
So that show, so for example, Denpagumi Inc. is run by Deer Stage, which is a kind of like idol cafe in Akiba. So it's still a company, right? Like they
Right.
still have a brick and mortar location.
I went
Um,
there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, still around.
Yeah.
I've been there a couple times. It's been a long time, but two or three times. Was never a regular. But so even looking at Dempagumi, it was kind of like, oh, this is a company. This is a talent agency or a company, a corporate entity that is producing this. So that was my initial kind of mindset going into idol culture. But so we had that event in Malaysia. For work, we really didn't have a lot else to do with idols there. So basically, as a fan, I just started going to shows. And the group that I started going to the most was Bell Ring Girls Heart. This was right when they got started. It was before their first album was out. They had maybe two or three singles out at that point, I think. And going to that show, their shows, they were playing with Yudamerimo a lot as well. And this is also pre Ano-chan Yudamerimo. This was before they added the new members that included her, so before they got really big. And the interesting thing was, for both Bellring Girls Heart as well as Yudamerimo, it was just a guy. It wasn't a company that was doing these groups. It was just one guy for each group that had basically said, I'm going to make an idol group. And I never knew that was a thing you could do. Like, I didn't know that that was an option. So, at that time, I had left the company I was previously working for. I was working mainly as a prototyper, doing like sculptures and prototypes and painting for toys in Japan. And that just meant being in the studio. I say office now, but it was really literally a studio, like painting, sculpting, wax work studio all day, every day, basically on your own. And it was like, I like this, but I would really like to talk to people. I would like to be I would like to be outside of these four walls at some point during the week. Um, and so I was talking to a friend, and he was like, "Well, you keep going to all these idol shows. Why don't you just make a group?" And I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." So I did.
So, with that, we'll like head into the section where you create your first group, or yeah, your first project, Necronomidal.
Yeah.
What really inspired like the concept and the name for said group?
So at that point, there were definitely some dark idol groups out there. We weren't the first like dark idol group, but I wanted to take it a little bit further. Like a lot of the darker groups, it was sort of cutesy dark, I guess. It was more kind of like Lolita dark, or like we have a song about vampires dark, and I wanted to go really dark. And I was a huge Lovecraft fan. I've always loved, like black metal and kind of underground metal. And I thought that these were some veins that had not been tapped. These were some areas that had not really been um, explored in the idol realm. So I said, okay, we're going to do an ultra dark, Lovecraftian, kind of J horror influenced black metal slash synthwave idol group. So it's like all of the things that are not popular in Japan. Got them.
At least you got a niche, yeah, and you filled it with this group. So,
We
um,
we made the niche. I think there was like nobody was out there saying this is what we want. Like, oh, we're waiting for this. It was kind of like we made it and it's out there. So if you guys want it, come and get it.
so you got the concept. Now you needed members for the group. How so
Yeah.
you opened up like recruitment or like auditions. How many members were you looking for one? And also what were you looking for in a member who wanted to join?
So that's a really good question. What I had seen, so I'd probably been in that sort of underground idol world for maybe 2 or 3 years as a fan at that point, I think. And one thing I saw even then was there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of turnover. And you would always see groups would definitely lose a couple of members before they debuted or right after they debuted. So I said, at that point, and basically I was coming at this from zero, right? So it's not like, oh, I previously was in this famous band, or I worked with this famous production company, or I did this or that. I was basically, I'm a guy, and I'm also non-Japanese. This is my first kind of, foray into this area. And you're also, there's a term in Japan in the kind of Japanese idol world called han ota. So basically half otaku. And that's for people who are involved in some like kind of backstage production capacity or even as an idol, but are also half otaku. So they still go to shows, or they still either they still go to shows, or they previously went to shows. They previously went as a fan, interacted as a fan. And it's not usually a great thing. Usually
Oh.
if somebody says you're a hanota, it's not a point in your favor in most cases. So I was also kind of coming at it from that standpoint, which is like you get some connections, you get to know some people, but you've also got to kind of draw that line in the sand and be like, okay, up until this day, I was a fan, and from this day forward, I'm on the production side. I'm going to do this as a project. So, with all of that in mind, I basically said, anybody who I think has a chance of being able to do this. Sometimes you get the applications where it's kind of like, no. Unfortunately, just I can already see the problems. I can already see the issues down the line. Um, but it worked out like that. I think we had 7 members 7 or 8 when we did the initial photo shoot, and then 4 stuck on until the first show.
Ooh, that
Yeah,
yeah.
so
So,
the rate of attrition is pretty high.
man, yeah, I was wondering like, I was well. It's really interesting the amount of turnover before I guess debut. So interesting to hear
I
that.
mean, yeah, a lot of that was also my own inexperience. If I had, with the eyes I have now, or the experience I have now in that same situation, I probably would have cut those 3 or 4 that quit, but just from the get-go, from the start. but you don't know. It's your first time, and so basically, I was just saying, let's see how it goes, and just sort of natural selection, right? Those who are meant to go forward will go forward. Those who are meant to fall by the wayside will fall by the wayside.
Right. Since this was like your, I guess, real first time like managing and like running a group, what was it like trying to develop stuff for the group, be it like through production, mixing, choreo, stuff like that?
So I had done a little bit of just kind of, messing around music when I was younger. So I knew, okay, if you want to record if you want to record a song, you go to a recording studio. If you want to do practice, you go to a practice studio. So I knew like the very nuts and bolts basics of like doing music in Japan. But I mean, really like the sort of high school band level, the high school like garage band level music stuff. I didn't have a lot of experience in any of those. And I did live sound mixing for about 7 years. So I was actually okay on a soundboard. Like I know my way around. Recording less so live sound I can do pretty well just on my own. So that was actually not that bad. Like I was pretty good there. In terms of like choreography and stuff like that, I had no idea. So I had no idea. And so what we would do is we would just, you know, I would ask some guys who I thought could write songs. I would reach out to people who seemed like they could write songs. It's like, I like your songs. Would you like to write a song for us? And I would do the lyrics myself. And then we would just kind of put something together when it came to the choreography. Like, it was like a choreography jam session, basically. Just get in the studio and, okay, let's try this here, let's try that there. Now, obviously, I going back, I'd be like, no, you need a choreographer
Yeah.
to do choreography. Like, this is not rocket science. But at that time, I didn't know any choreographers, so you're kind of starting from zero.
Right. Um, with that, with like the actual like preparations for the group, for the like production of like the first song and like getting them booked for like their first show. What was it like trying to debut the group or trying to market the group for a general audience?
So we were going, one thing that I always wanted to do, and this has not changed in the 10 plus years I've been doing this, is I really wanted to hit YouTube hard.
Hmm.
I thought YouTube was going to be one of our main kind of strengths, our main kind of promotion tools. And so before we even debuted, one of the first things we did was put a music video out.
Right.
And that really, really helped. That really helped because at that point, even now, a lot of underground idol groups or independent idol groups, it's like they don't have a music video. And it's gotten easier to do that going forward, because now it's like you can shoot something with your phone that looks pretty good. It's like you don't need expensive cameras and a lot of, crazy kind of like add-on packages and stuff. You can do something decent with free software and a couple of phones. But that was kind of one of the first things we did. And coming at it from that sort of DIY punk ethos, I just said nobody's going to book us. So I'm just going to set up our first show. So I booked the venue, this little tiny hole in the wall venue. I found a couple other like really independent solo performers, solo idols to open up or to kind of play with us. And I just put the show together, and it was just Twitter's was and still is, one of the big ones in Japan for promotion. So just YouTube, Twitter, getting the word out. And then also one of the plus sides of having been a fan, there weren't a lot of fans at that point who went on to make a group. And so that was still kind of unusual or sort of a novelty, I guess you could say. And so, that also did a little bit of the legwork for me because it was sort of like, what is this? It's either going to be amazing or a train wreck, one or the other.
Do you like with that first? You basically just organize your like your own Taiban, which is crazy to think about. But like that, props to you because like organizing like that many like I guess performers and then also your group is pretty complicated, I would say, right?
I mean, it was a 3-man.
Oh.
So it's just us and two other performers, tiny venue, no backstage. So I can remember I was running sound. I had my members like literally sitting on the side of the stage while the other performers were performing. I mean, it was about as bare bones as you can get. Like you can't get much more bare bones than what we were doing right there. But yeah, and it was also just kind of one thing I've found doing this is write an email, write a DM. It's like if you want to do it, just start sending emails and DMs out there. And it's like you're probably going to get more rejections than you get acceptances, but you've just got to get the ball rolling because nobody else is going to do it for you.
Right.
You've got to be a self starter.
Mm. What was the reception like for that first show though? Like was there a good turnout of fans or like anything?
the
Right.
the it was packed.
Really?
It was
Yeah.
really, really good. We had a great turnout the first time, but I think for most idol groups in Japan, especially at that time, your first show is going to be good. Your first show is, in terms of turnout, is going to be good. It's the second show that's the one you have to worry about.
Yeah, like you got to retain those people. Right? Like
Yeah,
it's tough to retain like the people that showed up the first time and like make or break, and then like the regulars if they even show up, it's pretty not great. I mean, like yeah, the retention rate is pretty complicated, right?
it's an uphill battle. It's an
Right.
uphill battle. So Yeah, that was the challenge. Because I mean, everybody wants to be there for the first show. You know, everybody wants to kind of you think about like the old punk shows where it's like the first time the Sex Pistols played outside of London, and it's like you've got hundreds of people saying like I was there, I saw that show. But in reality, the guys putting the show on were like, there were 30 people there tops, you know? So it's like, but everybody wants to say they were there 10 years on. So I'm not trying to equate us to the Sex Pistols. I'm just saying that sort of like that effect happens. I think where everybody thinks they were there, wants to be there. But I think the second show, you know, if we had 5 or 6 people there, we were doing good. You know, going forward.
For sure. With the ball rolling, group just debuted. What was the usual like schedule like? Like how many shows were they like doing per week?
So at the very beginning, you know, just kind of getting booked, finding shows to play, kind of building up the network was an uphill battle. So I mean, if we were doing maybe 1 show a month, 2 shows a month for the first couple of months there, it was not a lot because we were just kind of, you know, you're kind of pounding pavement, as it were. You're sort of like, what shows can we play? Who can we play with? Where can we get in? And you're an unknown quantity, so that can work for you because some people say, oh, you know, the new kids on the block, you guys are interesting, let's have you. Other people are kind of like, yeah, we're good. You know, we've got enough as it is. So it took a while to kind of get everything firing on all cylinders. I would say maybe half a year probably.
I see. This is very inside baseball, but like I'm pretty sure this is the only time I'll probably ask it. But like, when you were booking the group for venues, or like events, what were like the usual requirements that these events or venues wanted? Like ticket sales, merch sales, stuff like that.
So in Japan, it's one of those sort of like secret handshake things where you're not going to know if you don't meet the requirements, but if you meet the requirements, you're on the show. I mean, there's not like a set in stone like you need to be able to provide this much or we are not going to be happy system. It's just sort of like, yeah, you guys are okay. You can play the show, or you just don't get an email back. You know, um, there's an interesting system in Japan for bands and sometimes for idols called noruma. And noruma is sort of like your, what would you say? It's like your required number of ticket sales. It's if you have a noruma of 10 people for a band show, you get 10 people in the door, you're good, and you probably get some percent of those ticket sales back. If you get 5 people in the door, the 5 unsold tickets that you were supposed to sell, you've got to buy.
Oh,
So you have to pay for yourself. That doesn't really apply for idols.
mm,
It's kind of a different system for most shows. So a lot of shows in Japan, what they'll do is they run on what's called a ticket back system, which is for every person you get that comes to see you at the show, either from person one or sometimes it's from 5 people on, 10 people on, 15 people on, you get a percentage of the ticket sales back. That could be 500 yen. It could be half of the ticket sales back, depending on the event, on the promoter, on the venue. So there's usually not that lower cap or that kind of quota that you have to fill, but you know, there is that kind of expectation that you will draw, you know. But again, it's like they don't usually tell you off the bat, like if you want to play a show, oh, you need to get 15, 20 people. It's just kind of like they'll reach out to you. You know what I mean?
right. I see.
So yeah, it's a little bit tricky. There's a lot of that sort of reading the air or reading the situation when it comes to booking shows in Japan.
Mhm. As well as I introduce you as the man of 1,004 jobs, was it hard? Was it hard juggling like all these tasks for the group, be it like management, booking, production, the graphics, everything?
I would say not so much was it hard, is it hard? It's always hard. It's every day it's hard. Even now. Yeah, there's a lot to do. Um I find for me I like the creative stuff. So designing graphics, working on music videos, making things for the group. So whenever we had a one-man show, I would usually do like something big to put like a big kind of object or something like large to put on stage, making those kind of things, designing uniforms, stuff like that. I love that. The more kind of managerial stuff, scheduling, accounting, I do not like at all. But it's part and parcel. You know, you still have to do it. So you have to wear a lot of hats, and some of them you like, some of them you don't like as much. But yeah, it's always there's never enough time, right? And so it's always a case of what needs to get done now versus what would be good to have done for the future, what would be good to have done for 3 4 months down the line. I'm working right now very hard on Himari's very much a Himari from Isiliel, who is kind of the only stage talent that I'm working with now, is very methodical and very kind of like schedule driven. And so she's been teaching me a lot. She's been training me to get better at those elements where it's kind of like, hey, it would be good to have next week's schedule before next week.
Yeah, it's sometimes, yeah, it's good to have like a schedule.
Yeah, it's a good thing to have.
For sure. um, Going back to Necronomidal, like,
Sure.
was there a consistent fan base? Like, was there like regular wodas going to every single show, stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. So we had the guys who would come out every time. We were kind of in this interesting like kind of amphibian state where it's like you're half on land, half in the water, where we played a lot with bands, we played a lot with like underground avant-garde music or events like that. We also played with a lot of idols. And so what I saw happening is we would have guys, if we played with bands, like this is a band show with maybe just us or us and another idol, we would have our band guys come out. So you've got your kind of like ride or dies who are coming out every time. And then you would have your band guys. If we were playing, we actually had quite a lot of Visual K fans for some
Ooh.
reason. I think it was because of sort of the theatricality or the concept or kind of like the dark world view of the group. But so if we were playing with Visual K groups, we would have the Visual K guys coming out. If we were playing an idol show where it was a lot of just really mainstream or kind of like underground idols, we would have the idol guys come out. So that was actually really good because what that means is when you do a one man, you've got all those guys coming out, which is that's a big point in your favor. But yeah, so you build that community, right? I think it's definitely building up and kind of nurturing that community of fans around the group.
Interesting. What would you say, like, the usual day for running the group? What would that be like for you and for the group?
There's no such thing,
No
to
such
be
thing.
honest. I mean, it was always. I mean, weekends are your kind of bread and butter time because usually, most of the time in Japan, somebody who's active as an idol is they're going to have a day job or they're going to be a student or they're going to have something else going on. So, weekday afternoons, weekday mornings would normally be your downtime where you could kind of get caught up on emails. You could get caught up on maybe having a couple meetings here or there, setting things up, getting things moving. Evenings would be kind of either shows or studio time, lessons, things like that. And then weekends were kind of your, busy times, your really busy periods. So, if you had a matinee show, you could be at the venue 8:39 in the morning sometimes. I mean, it would be early because you've got like an 11 o'clock doors at 11 o'clock, show starts at 11:30. That means rehearsal has to be finished by about 10:30 or so, and depending on the number of groups, rehearsals could be starting 9:30, and you want to get there a little bit before, because it's like you don't want to just roll up and be on stage 2 minutes later. So that doesn't sound bad, but the issue then could be if you had a matinee show on Sunday and you also had a show Saturday night, which is not unusual for Tokyo or for Japan. You could be getting back from your show midnight, a little bit after midnight, and then have to be back at another venue at 8:30 or 9 the next morning. So there were some pretty intense days there. It wasn't as bad for me because I'm actually relatively centrally located, but for some of the members who lived further out, they could be spending an hour and a half on the train to get home and then an hour and a half back the next day. So could be a bit stressful,
Yeah, like from from the perspective like of talking to some idols that like also do like matinee shows and then immediately the day after rushing to evening show and then immediately going into a matinee show. It's pretty hectic.
Yeah.
For sure.
It can get tight. It can get tight.
Necronominal was pretty much active 2014 to 2022, but in the middle of that was the pandemic. What was the group doing during lockdown and through all of that?
That's a really good question. So, you may or may not be aware, in Japan, they didn't have hard lockdowns. So different than some parts of the US, different than Europe, definitely. I know in France and a couple other countries in Europe, like you weren't allowed to leave your house. You could go to the supermarket and you could go for medical things, to the pharmacy or the hospital or the clinics, but you couldn't go out for work, or unless you're like an essential worker, obviously. But you couldn't just go outside the house. Japan legally couldn't do that. So while there was a period of no shows where you really couldn't have live music, you could still kind of do things. You could still kind of get things done to a point. And actually, so I'm just going to kind of put it all out there because this is all on the record books at this point. But we had a big kind of explosion in the group where pretty much all of the members left right before, it was right at the beginning, kind of at that fomenting stage of COVID. So we had 3 members who left. We had Himari stayed on. We had 1 new member who was kind of tentatively slated to debut right around that period. She hung on. And so we had to basically rebuild the group. So to be honest, in that situation, COVID helped. It actually really helped us because we could still get in the studio. You were allowed, studios were open, not all of them, but some of them. And there was no problem doing studio time, doing rehearsals. And the choreographer was like, I got nothing going on. The members were like, I got nothing going on. And so, obviously taking precautions, everybody's got your masks, everybody's, hand sanitizing, doing everything you need to do. But yeah, we were just doing 5-hour studio days pretty much every day during the really like severe parts of lockdown. So when the restrictions kind of lifted a little bit, and initially you could do live stream shows, then you could do limited audience shows, so half capacity or 1/3 capacity audience shows, we were basically hitting the ground running. We were ready to go.
Interesting, because like getting the perspective of someone who managed a group during the pandemic, like it's very interesting to hear, because we've had people on we've had solo idols on that I don't think no, they definitely didn't like perform in Japan during the pandemic. So this is very much a unique perspective to hear. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were probably 3 or 4 months there where you couldn't perform. And the thing about Japan is, I'm sure you probably know, it's all about like social pressure, right?
For
So
sure.
even if legally you can perform, if you perform, everybody is going to dogpile you on social media. You know, everybody's going to be, and you saw this so many times where it's like, oh, why are they having a show so early? Oh, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And you know, at the end of the day, right? I'm not saying one way of thinking or the other way of thinking is correct. You know, for us, we always tried to toe the line. We really said like, okay, no calls, no otage. Like when we're doing the shows, we're all gonna follow the restrictions. We're gonna follow all the guidelines. You know, even if you don't have to, and even if there are groups that are definitely not doing that, let's at least we're going to toe the line, right? But I'm also not going to say we're not going to do any shows. You know, we're never going to do shows until COVID is finished, because then we wouldn't be here. But yeah, you know, there were 3 or 4 months where you couldn't do shows, basically, where it was just off the tables. But for us, I mean, we're always trying to find, what can we do? If we can't do shows, we can record. If we can't do shows, we can do music videos. We can do studio time. We can do new songs. And so we really tried to find like everything that we could do, both, you know, to make sure everybody's safe and to make sure that we're not kind of overstepping any restrictions or overstepping any boundaries during that.
I see. Moving through it, Necronominal ended in 2022, but you moved on to another project with a very specific member that held on, and it was called Isiliel, and is still called Isiliel. What was the concept behind the project?
Just to add kind of an addendum onto that, Necromidal went on hiatus. So technically still that, no, it's okay. It's okay. But I know if I don't add that on there, I will get people. I have had people, even because the very small minor things are like, the group's actually gone. It's like it's on hiatus.
Okay.
It's on hiatus. So just putting that out there for the people who care. It's not done. It's on hiatus.
I see.
Slumbering. Slumbering. Yeah, for Isiliel, so we had actually started Himari's solo project. It was just like Skishiro Himari solo. It was about 6 months before Isiliel started, so that would have been fall of 2021, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think fall of 2021, if I'm being if my timeline is correct. And then Isiliel started the following spring, right after that. And so initially, for the solo project, we really wanted to do something that could kind of build on Himari's vocals, on her stage presence, on kind of what she was really good at, on kind of the weapons she had in her arsenal. And for Isiliel, we spent a lot of time talking about what would be the best project thematically for her. What would be something that she would want to do, something that excited her. For Necronominal, it was basically all from me. You know, that was sort of my baby, start to finish. But for Isiliel, we've spent a lot of time really talking about themes and the sort of overall milieu, the overall kind of image we wanted to present there. And Himari's had she hasn't had an easy time as an idol, I would say. Like, she's had a lot of hurdles to overcome. She's had a lot of kind of struggles, like, you know, whether that's personally, familially, you know, just in her kind of performance or in her career as an idol. And so we wanted to make Isiliel something that was kind of building off of those and reaching out to people who are also struggling, you know, in a hard place, in a difficult place, saying like, hey, you know, things are difficult. It's not easy. It's not simple, but together we can make it through. You know, hang tough, hang in there. There are better days coming, and your hard work, your sacrifices are going to pay off in the end.
Very cathartic for Himari, and like using this concept to like use to spread that message for sure, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's something. I think at the end of the day, it's like you can go through these really difficult, hard periods yourself. And as long as you know it's building towards something, you know, as long as you know there's an end goal or there's a reason behind all of it, you can hang through. But the minute you lose that reason, the minute you lose that kind of raison d'etre of like why you're struggling, why you're going through all of this, then it sort of all falls apart, because it's like you lose the story, as it were.
Mm.
But yeah, and so that's what we thought. Let's really leverage that. Let's really kind of put that first and foremost, that struggle first and foremost in the music, in the imagery, in everything, and make that something for all those people who are kind of really pushing through, really kind of hanging tough, to kind of anchor onto.
I see. So very much progressively, or like majority Himari's project for sure, right? You would say.
Yeah, very much so.
With this project in mind, were you aiming for a primarily Japanese demographic or an overseas demographic?
That really didn't even factor in. I mean, at no point did we really think, this country or that country, domestic or international. There are a lot of people inside Japan struggling. There's a lot of people international struggling.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people all around the world who kind of need that boost, who kind of need that kind of like ray of hope in their life. And so we never really thought about it from like a country to country perspective, I guess.
Mm. Was there a lot of carryover from Necronominal or from her time in Necronominal?
Carryover in terms of
Fans of like going to Isilia shows, stuff like that.
gotcha. Yeah, I would say so. Especially at the beginning. Right now, we're seeing, I would say in the last year or so, we've started to see a lot of people coming into Isiliel and saying like, "Oh, Himari used to be in a group. Himari was in a regular, not a regular, but like in an actual like group idol situation before this. I never knew that." But at the beginning, yeah, I mean, we were coming out of that. I mean, wow, it's been 10 years now for me since I started the group. She was in Necronominal for, I think, 6 years, just about. I want to say 5 or 6 years. When we started Isiliel, at that point, I had been doing it for 7, I think, somewhere around there. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of carryover in that terms.
Do you remember the very first Isilia show that Himari performed at? What was that like?
Yeah, very well, actually. It was at Rainy Alpha in Akabane. It was actually her birthday show.
Oh.
And so it was Necronomidal was on there, Isiliel's first show was on there, and we had maybe 6 other idol groups performing. 6 other idol groups. There were some other performers as well. Some non-idol artists and performers as well. But I think there may be 6 other artists on the bill, something like that. It's a pretty big show.
Mm.
But it was really, really cool. It was awesome because we were debuting new songs. It was the first time we had kind of that Isiliel project name. And especially for me, it's like I could just see, wow, this is going to be really interesting. This is going to be a really, really, there's so much we can do with this going forward. And just thematically and also visually, it's a lot different than Necronominal. There's a different feel to it. And so for me, it's like, I love Necronominal. I love doing that. But it's like after 8 years, you start to yeah, Cthulhu, yeah, magic ritual, yeah. So it felt very fresh, It was an exciting kind of position to be in there.
Was Isiliel's schedule, was it more often or less compared to Necronominal?
Definitely less, especially at the beginning. So Necronominal started as kind of an underground idol group.
Right.
And so we were sort of holding that route the whole way, basically like this is an underground idol group. For Isiliel, I never really looked at it as an underground idol project. The way I look at it now is Himari herself is an idol. She's performing as an idol. That doesn't change. But Isiliel isn't like an underground idol project. It's a music project. And so that's why starting from this year, we've been doing more shows with a backing band. Whenever we play shows, obviously we're super happy to play with idols. We love playing with idols, but I also really like playing with bands, with metal bands or other kind of like artists who are not idols. So because of that, that like underground idol schedule doesn't really work. It's not the kind of project where I think it benefits from doing 3 shows a week every week for the whole year, you know?
Right.
Which we've, especially in Japan, you know, we have gotten a bit of pushback from fans on that. It's like, when are you going to have a show? We want more shows. And it's like, I get that. I totally understand that. But most bands and most artists here, they don't have, you know, 3 shows a week. They don't have sometimes more. I mean, some of the other members from Necronominal, the groups that they were in previously, they did 30 shows a month.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot. And to be honest, this is just me kind of my sort of producer mind. So excuse me for this if I'm getting a little bit too out there, but it's too many.
Too many.
That's too many shows because I think it's each individual show becomes a little bit less special. And you know, even though I 100% think the performers and the people behind it are saying like, no, every show is special, every show is, you know, giving it 100%, really doing everything we can. No doubts about that, but it's just like, you know, if you have that many shows, it's impossible to make each and every one something special, even if not for you, for the fans, you know, because it's like, why bother going to this show if there's going to be one next week? And, you know, a lot of times you end up playing with the same groups and the same venues and the same kind of Taiban. And it's just like, it's a lot. And I've seen so many fans and so many performers too. You get burned out, you know, you get burned out both creatively as well as physically, just like tired and just kind of going through the motions. And again, I'm not saying that's for everybody. You know, I 100% know that there are people who can do it, who can really, they've got that grind set on. But it's like for us, I just don't really want to do that. You know, I
Yeah.
want to put more time in to kind of make everything as special and
As possible.
unique
Yeah.
and interesting as we can.
Cause like even for me, like one of my favorite groups, out of pure circumstance, they lost agency backing because the agency kind of closed. But as a self-produced now, like they went from 6 shows a week and now they're just doing 1 show a week. So like very
Okay.
much like stretching or like closing down on just making. I'm pretty sure making every single show a little bit more special since they're not doing as much now. So yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
But I mean, I think that's like, honestly, man, I've been in the scene here for years and years, and it's like, I, I don't think it's smart to do that many, like to do 30 shows a month, you know, to do 25 shows a month. It's like, I just see it being kind of an endless loop, you know, and I see the fans burning out. Like I can see the fans, I've, you know, talked to fans who are like, oh, you know, I want to go to every show, I want to support, but I just like monetarily, time wise, I can't do it. And, you know, I feel bad I have to like pick and choose, but what are you going to do? You know, and it's like, yeah, what are you going to do? I remember when I was a fan, there was a release event that I went to, and it was really early on a weekday. It was like 3 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon on a weekday, and there was a fan there that I knew pretty well. And I was like, "You don't you have work?" He's like, "Yeah, they said if I go today, they're gonna fire me, but I came anyways."
What?
Yeah, I don't know how serious he was. You know, maybe he might have been joking a little bit, but I definitely remember that. And that's not the only time I've seen that happen. You know, where you know the really hardcore fans, because he was hardcore. He was like, "I will be at every show," And even that for that group, they weren't doing 30 shows a month. We were talking maybe 10, 15, a lot, but not an unreasonable amount, like not an insane amount. But he was like, I will be there at every show. And yeah, I mean, I've seen guys like have family problems, like guys get divorced, guys lose their jobs. It happens. And I think I've got there's probably the delivery agencies here, but we're not going to worry about that. I'll get it later.
Okay.
Apologies for the ping pong.
It's totally fine. Another question that I want to ask about Isiliel. Was there anything that surprised you about the amount of fans from like all over the world? Were you expecting that, or you know?
We were definitely hoping for it. It's been a better response than we could have dreamed for. We've had such an amazing, made so many great connections and seen so many amazing fans from all over the place. And I mean, almost every day I get comments or I see comments from people saying, come to Mexico, come to Brazil, come to Chile, come to, all these other countries, come to Texas, come to these areas that we haven't had a chance to be to, Canada. And so it's really, really cool to see it going so international. And I think this is also kind of me kind of extrapolating a bit, but like the Isiliel fans are really, really good fans. they're really kind and like just really, really good fans. Like you can feel the love. So that also really it kind of makes it all worth doing. It makes the kind of difficult, challenging times worth pushing through.
Speaking of like people wishing Isiliel would go to Texas, Brazil.
Yeah.
Let's go to talking about your most recent tour, Moonbow Crusade in America, 2024.
Yeah.
Take me through the process of like booking a venue and like a date for an Isiliel event in the U.S. Was there like any requirements and stuff like that, like with and stuff like prior, or no?
I think a lot of times in the US and in most of the kind of Western countries, it's people it's who you know. So booking shows on your own, just especially from Japan, is really difficult. Um, because if that venue or the venue manager or their booking manager doesn't know who you are, they don't necessarily want to give you a day. And there aren't a lot of shows that you can just jump on because unless you know the promoter or the promotion agency, it's either the venue itself putting the show on or usually a promoter or promotion agency. So one thing, we've got a lot of really great friends in the US and a lot of really great connections who have helped us out so much. A really, really big one is Barcon. Barcon has been just a huge supporter the last couple years with Isiliel. We're eternally thankful to them for all the help. And so usually when I'm going, when we're going to put together a tour, there's a short list of kind of friends in the US or friends in that area that I know. And I say, hey, I'm thinking about coming over in June and July. What's your availability? Do you have any shows you're putting together? Do you have any availability there to maybe book some other shows around there? Because a lot of those people know other venues, they know other either booking agencies or places to play shows or events that are going on. So that's basically the route that we go there. But we're always looking to expand that that circle. So anybody out there who says, Isiliel, please play our show, send me an email, send me a DM, because we are always looking for new shows to play. 100%.
If I remember correctly, you played cities like Philly, you played
Yep.
Carteret, you played I don't remember the city, but in Cali. What would you say was your favorite stop out of the American tour?
So that whole leg of the tour actually was really, really, really good. It was really good. It was so good to the point where I remember when we were getting ready, we went back to Japan for about a week before we headed to Europe. And when we were getting ready to leave the US, Himari said to me, "The US was so good. I hope we can do the same in Europe." Like, I'm almost worried about Europe now because everything went so smoothly, went so well in the US. I mean, it was really, really good. But I think if you said pick one show, only one, it would probably be in Palmdale in California, because that was the first show outside Japan we played with a live band.
Ooh.
And the guys were great. You know, that was also Barcon helped us set that up with some guys who had been involved in the Japanese music scene on the West Coast. Really, really great guys, and they really got it. You know, they really, really got what we were trying to do with the project and with the stage and with the show, and it was awesome. That was a really good show.
Speaking of Europe, you guys are going to Europe. Well, you did do like a special fan meeting in a church, but also you also are planning to go back to Europe in a few couple weeks from now, right?
In about a week and a half, yeah. So
Yeah.
we did about a month in Europe after the US, came back to Japan to kind of restock and sort of get some projects moving here to get a couple things back on track here. And then we're going back over in about a week and a half, yeah, for a month and a half or so.
Yeah. Very much. You guys going to the UK? You have
Yep.
several dates in Germany. I kind of want to ask. Um, does Isilia have like a lot of German fans, or was it an area that you wanted to get more growth out of?
So the German shows coming up. We did a show in Cologne. We're in September now, so that'd be last month. That was August. Sorry, I'm always on that kind of like verge of the months. It's like, was that this month? That was last month. We're in September now. Um, so we did a show in Cologne last month, and we played Cologne many times, and we've got a really, really good base of fans. The German fans are really cool. But the reason we have so many shows coming up in Germany in October is because we're actually going to be opening for the German band Capellius.
Ooh.
So they've been on a big tour the last couple of months, and we will be supporting them on the October portion of their tour. So that's super, super cool for us because that's something that I wanted to do ever since the Necronominal days. That was something I wanted to do with Necronominal, and it never happened. We were never able to get it to fruition. But now with the Isiliel, we're able to do that, and I'm really, really excited about that part of the tour.
Interesting. Uh, we talked about the U.S. leg. We talked about the Europe leg. Um, in general, for Isiliel, what is there like any bucket list things that you want to like achieve with this project?
Yeah, so we've played we played a lot of kind of international, I would say either Japanese music festivals, anime festivals, those kind of events, and we love those events because um sure most of the people listening know, but Himari is a giant anime fan. She loves anime. And so playing those events, she's also a cosplayer. So playing those events is a great opportunity to do some cosplay. She loves kind of being in that anime milieu, in that kind of anime atmosphere, and being surrounded by fans of anime. But one thing that we really want to do going forward is to play some metal fests too.
Ooh.
That's a big one. So, you know, like I said before, you know, we love playing with idols. We love performing with all different kinds of artists, but mainly it's a metal project, you know, musically.
Yeah.
And so obviously never going to kind of leave the idol scene. We're never going to kind of like distance ourselves from that. But going forward, I'd like to add in the kind of metal scene on there. We were actually on this tour, I had a metal festival booked in Europe, and we were supposed to play, but unfortunately they ran into some issues and the whole festival got canceled
Oh,
kind of at the last minute. So I was really, really looking forward to that, but didn't pan out this time. So that is definitely, I don't want to say that's a bucket list one because I want that to happen soon. I want that sooner rather than later. It's like it was right. I could see it right in the right in
Almost
my
there. Yeah.
vision, almost there. And then just at the very end, there were some issues with the location they were going to use. So legally, the city that had rented them the location was not allowed to have events there for the foreseeable future, so they had to cancel it, which is, really sad for us, but especially for the guys putting the festival on, because all that work, all that promotion, all that money that I'm sure went into it, and then to just have to say sorry, you can't do it, that would be heart crushing.
Damn. Hopefully, Isiliel gets another Metal Fest in the future, near future.
We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Like I said before, it's all about proactive. It's all about being proactive. So you don't wait for the emails, you got to send the emails.
Moving forward, do you have any advice, I guess, for people, how do I want to put this? Do you have any advice for people that are idols or people that are managing or self-producing their own idol project? Like, do you have any tips for them?
That's a really good question. I would say if you're gonna from this side, right, from my side, the kind of like production management side, if you're gonna invest in any skill, invest in your communication skills, because everything else, honestly, you can find somebody else to do it who will probably do it better than you. There's a lot of things I do myself. I design the t-shirts, I design the jackets and the layout, I make some of the outfits, I design a lot of the like the actual stage decorations and things like that. So many things I do. There are people out there who do it better than me. I like doing it, I want to keep doing it, but you can always find somebody to work with, you can always find somebody to kind of help you with that. But the one thing that you can never have too much of is communication skills. So just really being able to kind of connect in with people and to kind of share your ideas. And that's something I want to get better at myself. I guess for performers, like, it's always going to be more difficult than you think, and there's always going to be, sorry, um, challenges that come up, and be those interpersonal challenges, be those intrapersonal challenges, like challenges from inside yourself, motivation, kind of like hitting that wall when it comes to growth or when it comes to kind of your path forward as a performer. But, just really have that strong motivation, have something that you're working towards that you can hold on to, because otherwise you find yourself lost, I think. But I think that goes for everybody, if you're on the production side or if you're on the performing side. It's like if you don't have that core motivating factor, you're going to find yourself just adrift at sea.
For sure. Do you pretty much started Necronominal through and gained popularity and a fan base through social media?
Yeah.
Do you have like any recommendations on how other idols should build a following?
I'm not a great social media guy, so I'm probably not the one to ask on this. But what I would say is play to your strengths, right? Um, for example, if social media platform A is getting very popular now and people are getting a lot of activity on it, but you really, really don't like it and you really don't feel like it's something that you excel at, don't worry about it. Like, find the ones that you like, find the ones that you're comfortable with or that you feel like you're good at, and put your chips, put your resources in there. I like YouTube because I love doing music videos. That's one of my favorite parts of the job, is making music videos. So that's one that I always want to kind of play into. Um, Recently, Himari's been doing really well on Instagram. but I think that's also because she's really good at visuals. You know, she's really good at kind of taking and processing and like presenting visual information on Instagram. So, you know, find the social media that you like, that you're good at, and just really drill into that because you can never have too much on there, right?
Yeah. You talked about making music videos, directing music videos.
Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite one that you've ever done for Isiliel?
Oh, the last one. It's
Pinky
always the
Promise?
last one.
Oh.
It's Playful.
Oh, sorry,
Playful.
sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. It's always the last one because if it's not the last one I did something wrong, to be honest. You know, I love all of them. I really, really like all of the videos that we did. When we were doing Necronomidol, there was a point where we really ran into a wall with one of the music videos. It was not going in the direction that I thought it should. There were a lot of kind of production issues on there. And it got to the point where it was like, I'm going to have to direct this myself because otherwise I don't think it's going to get made. It's not going to get out there. And that was the best decision I could have made. And all the videos after that I've directed. I should have done that from the start. Honestly, I really feel that I should have done that from the start because it's like there's always I always feel like there's more that you could do. There's more you wanted to do. It's never exactly how I want it to be. It's never exactly how I think it should be. But it, if you're doing it yourself, at least it's your vision. At least it's your fingerprint on that video. But yeah, maybe my favorite one is the next one, the one we haven't made yet.
Gotta strive for the next project to be better than the last one for sure, right?
Exactly. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Yeah. One last question
Sure.
to ask. What would the current you right now, 2024 Ricky, tell the you that was just starting out to do stuff for Necronominal?
Everything is going to be more difficult than you think. So just from the beginning, get tough. Get as tough as you can, as fast as you can, because it's never going to be downhill. Like it's always going to be pushing that rock up the hill. It never gets easier.
It definitely doesn't. Every day has
But I think
a different challenge. So
they do. But I think that's also that means you're kind of growing, you know, because it's like if things are getting easier, if things are too simple, then I think maybe, at least for me, you're not going in the right direction. You know, it's like you should be kind of giving 110% all the time.
can't really be complacent, right?
Exactly. Well, that's something I've seen a lot. You know, it's like really complacency is the big enemy. I think that's the big enemy.
Interesting note to end on, but we have one more segment that we always do at the end of each episode, and it's called the worst pep talk ever, where I give the guest for 1 minute the worst pep talk ever. So like
I want that. I'm excited.
no, it's always so bad every single episode, but
I'm excited.
here we go. 1 minute. Ricky, you do a lot for you did a lot for Necronominal. You do a lot for Isiliel. Keep it up. Like really keep it up. It's very unique to have I guess an English speaker American manage a Japanese idol project. So be one of the very few that excel in that. And yeah, like seeing Himari Isiliel at Natsumatsuri very much stood out, and I want the project to keep standing out in any stage, you know, and you keep on doing what you got to do behind the scenes, organizing like events, doing stuff for production, and yeah, do everything. Keep on doing what you got to do, because I love Isiliel. It's a really interesting project compared to every well, every other thing that I've seen. So yeah, keep it up.
Thank you
One,
so much.
and
That's a good pep talk. What are you
that's
talking
bad.
about?
Always so bad. That's
That's
the
good.
point. But
If that's a bad pep talk, then I want to see a good one. That was a good one.
but yeah, that concludes this interview for this episode 19 with Ricky. Ricky Wilson. Thank you so much for accepting this invite. It was a long time coming, and it finally arrived, and it was really good. So it's very good to have insight, like with the like front end and like the behind the scenes stuff. So very cool to have you
Thank you
on.
so much for having me. It was a fun interview. It was a really fun interview. Those are really, really good questions. So thank you so much. Hope to see you again soon.
Whenever Isiliel is performing near California. Since I'm in Vegas, I might as well just travel the state over. If Isiliel has a show there, I'll go. I'm down.
I want to play Vegas. That was one of the cities on our kind of like cities we want to play in the US list. Vegas is like in the top 3, I would say. I'm trying to work on that.
please. So
Would love to. I don't know. Have you seen? I don't want to go over time, but have you seen a lot of idol shows in Vegas? I haven't seen that many.
Not really. We had I think last year November we had Neo Japanism perform here.
Okay.
We had a lot of K-pop, in the next coming months, but like that's a very much a different beast compared to Isiliel. So
that's its own genre, right?
Yeah. Like no, we really don't have any idol stuff because people just go to California for idol shows. So
it's not that far.
Yeah, that's pretty much why.
To.
Yeah, but yeah, hopefully in the near future, I'd love.
We'll get her we'll get Himari a residency at the Luxor whenever Carrot Top gets booted out. We'll get Himari next at the Luxor.
Oh, that'd be sick, actually. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. Next week we have another guest. Continue on our Northwest Idol Fest arc. We'll be announcing that guest on Twitter immediately after this episode. So yeah. Oh my God. Ricky, do you have like any upcoming gigs that you want to promote? The world tour, any secret stuff that you want to leak out? That's totally cool.
Secret stuff. So for the world tour, we're going back to Europe in about a week. I don't know how much of your fan base is on the European side, but we're going to be doing Birmingham September 13th, Edinburgh September 15th. After that, we're heading up to Norway for our first European show with a live band. That's going to be on September 21st. Unless I'm completely messing up my dates, but I'm 99% sure it's the 21st. Right outside Oslo. It's going to be about maybe 30 kilometers outside Oslo in Kongsvinger, but near there, in kind of in between Oslo and Gothenburg, in the Norwegian-Swedish border. After that, we're doing Tomo Fair on, I believe, the 29th and 30th, but please double check that on the schedule. That is going to be in Nijmegen in the Netherlands, and then we are in Germany for all of October pretty much, and then after that we're back October 26th. The tour final is going to be in Ikebukuro in Japan, so we have a busy couple of months.
Very much concluding the world tour, where it all began, I would say, right? Tokyo.
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly tying it all up in a nice little bow. We've also got one other thing. I'll put this out there for fans who are not in Europe or Japan. We've got a special live stream coming up direct from Aokigahara Jukai, which was the first place we did second place. I'm sorry. We did the second music video for Isiliel in Aokigahara. We did a bunch of photography for NECRONOMIDOL in Aokigahara as well. So it's our first time going back there in a couple of years. But that should also be really, really cool. That's coming up this Sunday. So just in about 6 days, in about a week. But that should also be very exciting. So please check out Isiliel's socials for details on all of that. It's Isiliel _JP on Twitter and X because those are the same thing, and also on Instagram.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you. Plug time.
Plug time. In chat, we have we have links for Isiliel JP, the Isiliel website, which Ricky, it kind of needs to be updated. It has like
It
stuff
needs
from
to be
2023, and like the music section is still has coming soon. Whenever you have the time, because like yeah, I was doing research and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Point taken. Point taken.
but yeah, follow Ricky, follow Isiliel, follow Himari, yeah. And that concludes this episode. So take care, brush your hair, be kind, rewind. We'll be going to our ending screen. Thank you, good night, and good luck. Bye bye. Whoa.